Kira Chin stepped off the transport shuttle and stared at the massive space station floating before her. Nexus 7 was bigger than any building she had ever seen on Earth. Its silver walls curved like a giant wheel, spinning slowly in the darkness of space. This was the Galactic Linguistic Institute, and she was about to walk inside. She was only 19 years old. Her hands trembled as she carried her small bag through the airlock. The doors opened with a soft hiss, and suddenly she was surrounded by aliens. A tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms walked past her without looking. Another being made of what looked like living crystal floated through the hallway, humming a strange song. Kira had seen aliens before on Earth, but never this many different kinds in one place. There were 47 species in the Galactic Council, and it seemed like all of them had someone here. Humans had joined the Council only 15 years ago. Most aliens still thought of Earth people as newcomers who did not know much about the universe. Kira had heard the whispers during her application process. Humans are too young, they said. They think too slowly. They live such short lives. But Kira had scored the highest marks in xenolinguistics in human history. She spoke 12 alien languages fluently. She had dreamed of this place since she was 7 years old, when the first alien ship landed in her city and she heard their beautiful, strange words. Now she stood in the main research hall, feeling very small. The chamber was enormous, with floating screens showing thousands of alien symbols. Scholars from across the galaxy worked at different stations, their voices creating a melody of clicks, whistles, and humming sounds. "You must be the human," a voice said behind her. Kira turned and looked up at a massive insect-like creature. He had a triangular head, large black eyes, and sharp mandibles that clicked when he spoke. "I am Professor Vrex. I lead the Dragon Tongue research team." "Yes, sir. I'm Dr. Kira Chin. I'm honored to." "Doctor?" Vrex's mandibles twitched in what Kira recognized as alien laughter. Humans give titles so easily. On my world, one must study for 70 years before earning such respect. Heat rose to Kira's cheeks, but she said nothing. Another scholar approached. This one looked like living crystal, her body reflecting rainbow colors in the light. "A human child on the Dragon Tongue project?" she said, her voice like ringing bells. "Vrex, this must be a joke." "The council requires diversity," Vrex replied, clicking his mandibles again. "Even if some species are not truly ready." Kira felt anger building in her chest, but she remembered her old professor's words. "They will underestimate you. Use it." "I'm ready to work," she said quietly. "Where should I begin?" Vrex gestured to a small station in the corner, far from the main research area. "You can organize the database. Catalog fragments we have already studied. Simple work for simple minds." The crystalline alien, whose name was Zalara, made a tinkling laugh. "The Dragon Tongue has existed for millions of years. My people have studied it for centuries. The Mantids have devoted their best scholars. Even our most powerful computers cannot break its secrets." She looked down at Kira. "What makes you think a species that only discovered space travel 20 years ago could possibly help?" Other aliens in the hall had stopped working to watch. Some were clicking, others humming. Kira understood enough to know they were laughing. "I'll do my best," Kira said simply. She walked to her small station and sat down. As the aliens returned to their work, still chuckling among themselves, Kira opened the database. Thousands of strange symbols filled her screen. They were beautiful and mysterious, these words from an ancient race called the Dragons. The aliens thought she was useless. They thought humans were too primitive, too emotional, too simple to understand something so complex. Kira smiled to herself. She had been underestimated before. She began to study. 3 weeks passed slowly. Every morning, Kira arrived at her small corner station while the alien scholars worked on the important research. They gave her the boring task. Sort these files. Label these fragments. Check these old reports that nobody wanted to read. But Kira was learning. The Dragon Tongue appeared in ruins on 12 different planets. Sometimes it was carved into stone walls. Sometimes it appeared as mathematical formulas. Sometimes it was just patterns of sound that old recording devices had captured. Nobody knew what any of it meant. Kira watched the alien scholars work from her corner. They approached the language like a puzzle made of logic. They built massive computer programs. They created translation matrices based on mathematics. They compared the dragon symbols to every known language in the galaxy. Nothing worked. Every translation came out as meaningless noise. One night, Kira stayed late after everyone else had gone. She pulled up the dragon fragments on her screen and stared at them for hours. There was something the aliens were missing. She could feel it. She noticed that certain symbols appeared together, but not in the way normal words connected. It was more like music, like rhythm. She remembered her mother, who had been a musician, explaining how songs had patterns that made people feel emotions. What if the dragon tongue was not just about logic? What if it had feelings built into it? Kira started working differently. She combined the visual symbols with the sound patterns. She added the mathematical sequences. But she also looked at how they flowed together, how they might make someone feel. She used human studies about how the brain processes language and emotion at the same time. After 2 more weeks, she found something. When she combined certain dragon sounds with their matching symbols in a specific rhythm, her equipment showed strange readings. The organic testing material in the lab reacted. It was small, but it was real. Her heart pounded. This was it. This was the key everyone had missed. She was so excited that she did not hear Professor Vrex enter the lab. "What are you doing?" His voice was sharp and angry. Kira jumped. I was just running some tests." Vrex's large eyes examined her screens. "You are using Institute resources without permission. You are running unauthorized experiments." His mandibles clicked rapidly. "And you are using emotion theory? On the dragon tongue?" Other scholars began arriving for the morning shift. They gathered around to see what was happening. "The human thinks feelings can decode ancient language," Vrex announced loudly. Several aliens made laughing sounds. "She believes dragon symbols are about emotions, not logic." Zalara floated over, her crystal body gleaming. "How primitive. Emotions are weaknesses, not tools. Advanced species evolve beyond such things." "My readings show," Kira began. "Your readings show nothing," Vrex interrupted. "You are wasting time with pseudoscience. The dragon tongue is mathematical. It is logical. It is beyond human emotional thinking." The gathered aliens clicked and hummed in agreement. Kira felt her face burning with embarrassment. "Perhaps humans are not suited for this work," another scholar said. "Perhaps they should return to simpler studies." Zalara moved closer to Kira. Her voice rang like cold bells. "I will make you an offer, human child. You have 12 days until the lunar cycle ends. If you can decode even one complete phrase of the dragon tongue, I will apologize publicly. If you fail..." She paused. "Then you will recommend that humans withdraw from this project. Your species' reputation depends on you." The room went silent. Every alien was watching. Kira's hands were shaking, but she lifted her chin. "I accept." Vrex made a dismissive gesture. "This is foolish. She will fail and we will waste 12 days. Then we waste 12 days, Zalara said, her rainbow colors flashing. "But the council will see that humans are not ready for advanced research." Kira gathered her things and walked out of the lab. Behind her, she heard the aliens laughing again. 12 days. She had 12 days to prove that humanity belonged here. She would not fail. Kira did not return to the institute the next day. She locked herself in her small quarters on the station and began working with her own equipment. She had 12 days. Every hour mattered. She sent messages to Earth. Not to other linguists, but to people the aliens would never think to ask. A musician who studied how sound affects the brain. A neuroscientist who researched emotions. An artist who could see colors when she heard music. "I need your help," she told them through video calls. "I need to understand how humans process language differently than computers." The musician sent her files about rhythm and resonance. The neuroscientist explained how human brains did not separate logic from feeling. The artist described how her senses mixed together, making language a full experience, not just words. Kira worked for 3 days without sleeping much. She drank too much coffee. Her eyes burned from staring at screens. But slowly an idea formed in her mind. What if the dragon tongue was not like normal language at all? What if it changed based on who was trying to read it? What if it was alive in some way, responding to the mind of the speaker? She remembered something from her quantum physics classes. Certain particles existed in multiple states at once until someone observed them. Then they became one thing. What if the dragon language worked the same way? What if it only made sense when the right kind of mind tried to understand it? The aliens were using pure logic. They were using computers and mathematics. But maybe that was exactly the wrong approach. Maybe the dragons had created a language that needed emotion, intuition, and chaos to work. On the 5th day, Kira built something new. She connected her personal computer to a neural interface, a device that could read her brain patterns. It was dangerous and probably against several safety rules. But she did not care. She put on the neural interface and looked at the dragon symbols. This time she did not just analyze them. She felt them. She let her emotions guide her through the patterns. She stopped thinking like a computer and started thinking like a human. Pain shot through her head. The interface was not meant to be used this way. But through the pain, something incredible happened. The symbols began to make sense. One phrase decoded clearly in her mind. Those who feel truly speak. Kira pulled off the interface, gasping. Her head throbbed with a terrible headache. But she was smiling. She had done it. She had translated actual dragon tongue. Over the next week, she worked every day with the neural interface. Each session brought worse headaches. She stopped eating properly. Dark circles appeared under her eyes. Her hands shook when she held things. But she kept working. She discovered more. The dragons had been telepathic. They communicated with thoughts and feelings, not just words. Their language was a test. It only opened for species that could balance logic with emotion. Pure logical minds would never crack it. Pure emotional minds would fail too. You needed both. The aliens had failed because they evolved to be too logical. They saw emotions as primitive weaknesses. But humans, chaotic and emotional and logical all mixed together, were actually perfect for this language. On the 11th day, Kira had translated 12 complete phrases. She understood how the language worked. She could speak it, using the neural interface to project the right combination of meaning and feeling. But she could barely stand. The interface had damaged something. Blood vessels in her eyes had burst, making them red. Her migraines were constant now. Tomorrow was the 12th day. Tomorrow she would face the aliens and prove them wrong. She looked at herself in the mirror. She looked terrible. But she had won. "Sorry, Vrex," she whispered to her reflection. "Humans are more than you thought." She fell asleep at her desk, the dragon symbols still glowing on her screen. Kira walked into the Institute's main chamber on the 12th day. Every seat was filled. Aliens from all 47 species had come to watch. Some wanted to see her succeed. Most wanted to see her fail. She looked terrible and she knew it. Her eyes were bloodshot and red. Her skin was pale. She swayed slightly as she walked, like she might fall over. She carried her neural interface device in shaking hands. Vrex sat in the front row, his mandibles clicking softly. Zalara floated beside him, her crystal body reflecting the lights. The Institute director, an ancient being called Morpheus who looked like flowing water in a transparent suit, sat at the center. "Dr. Chin," Morpheus's voice sounded like waves on a beach. "You have requested this demonstration. The Council is watching across the galaxy. Are you prepared?" "Yes," Kira said quietly. Her voice barely carried across the room. "Then begin," Morpheus said. Kira walked to the center of the chamber. All around the walls were dragon symbols carved into the metal centuries ago for study. Nobody had ever made them work. They were just decorations now. She placed the neural interface on her head. Several aliens laughed. "She brings a toy," someone whispered loudly. "Humans and their simple machines," another said. Kira closed her eyes. She activated the interface. Immediately, pain exploded in her skull. But she pushed through it. She opened her mouth and began to speak. The sounds that came out were not like any human language. They were not like alien languages either. They were something older, deeper. The sounds had rhythm and mathematics and emotion all woven together. They felt alive. The dragon symbols on the walls began to glow. The laughter stopped instantly. The symbols grew brighter, pulsing with soft blue light. Then something impossible happened. The air in the center of the chamber shimmered. Holographic images appeared, projections of massive creatures with wings and long necks. Dragons. The entire room gasped. Kira kept speaking. Her voice grew stronger even as blood began to drip from her nose. The dragon holograms moved as if they were alive. As if they were listening. She translated as she spoke, her words mixing English with the dragon tongue. "We leave this message, for those who come after, for species worthy of our knowledge, those who balance mind and heart, logic and feeling." More symbols around the room activated. Screens that had been dark for years suddenly lit up. They showed star maps. Mathematical formulas. Images of technology beyond anything the current galaxy possessed. "The dragons predicted this," Kira continued, her voice shaking. "They knew future species would evolve. Some would become pure logic. Some pure emotion. But the worthy ones would keep both, would stay beautifully chaotic." Vrex stood up slowly, his large body trembling. His mandibles hung open in shock. Zalara's crystal form flickered rapidly, something that showed extreme surprise in her species. "Impossible," someone whispered. "She is actually speaking it. She is actually making it work." Kira spoke one final phrase. "Welcome, children of feeling." The universe awaits those brave enough to understand. Then she collapsed. The neural interface fell from her head and clattered on the floor. The dragon holograms faded slowly. But the symbols remained glowing on the walls, proof of what had just happened. For a long moment, nobody moved. The chamber was completely silent. Then Morpheus stood. His watery form rippled. Remarkable. In all my centuries, I have never seen anything like this. Vrex walked slowly to where Kira lay unconscious. His mandibles clicked softly, but not with laughter this time. I was wrong, he said quietly. We were all wrong about humans. Medical staff rushed forward to help Kira. As they lifted her onto a stretcher, Zalara floated close. Her bell-like voice was soft now, filled with something that might have been respect. She did it. The human child did what we could not do in centuries. The news was already spreading across the galaxy. Everything had changed. Kira woke up 3 days later in the medical bay. Her head still hurt, but the terrible pain was gone. A doctor from a species she did not recognize checked her vitals and smiled with too many teeth. You are lucky to be alive, the doctor said. That neural interface nearly killed you. But you will recover fully. As news of her success spread across the galaxy, everything changed. Her hospital room filled with flowers and gifts from species she had never met. Messages poured in from thousands of worlds. The human who spoke the dragon tongue. The girl who solved the ancient mystery. But the most surprising visitor came on her 4th day of recovery. Professor Vrex entered the room slowly. His large insect body seemed smaller somehow, less frightening. He stood by her bed for a long moment, his mandibles clicking softly. I owe you an apology, he said finally. I treated you with disrespect. I assumed your species was inferior because you were young and emotional. I was a fool. Kira sat up carefully. You were not the only one who thought that way. No, Vrex agreed. But I should have been better. I'm supposed to be a scientist. Scientists should observe without prejudice. His black eyes looked sad. My species evolved to remove emotions. We thought it made us smarter. But we became rigid. We could not see solutions that required feeling as well as thinking. Zalara came next, floating into the room with colors shifting across her crystal body. I also apologize, her bell voice rang clearly. And I have a request. My people wish to study human neurology. We want to understand how your minds work. Perhaps we can learn to think more like you. More aliens came over the following weeks. Scientists, scholars, politicians. They all wanted to understand how humans had succeeded where others failed. Some were jealous. Some were angry. But most were fascinated. The Galactic Council held an emergency session. They voted to give humans full access to all Dragon archives. They appointed Kira as the youngest director in Institute history. She would lead the Dragon Tongue Translation Project. But she did not work alone. Kira created mixed teams, pairing humans with aliens of different species. Logical thinkers worked alongside emotional ones. They learned from each other. The translations came faster than anyone expected. The Dragon archives contained incredible knowledge. Star maps showing safe routes through dangerous space. Technology for clean energy. Warnings about ancient threats that still slept in dark corners of the galaxy. Medical advances that could save billions of lives. But they also contained a message. The dragons had left their knowledge as a gift and a test. They wanted to see which future species would be wise enough, balanced enough, humble enough to claim it. 6 months after her demonstration, Kira stood on a newly discovered planet. Dragon ruins covered the surface, bigger than anything found before. Alien colleagues stood beside her now as equals. Vrex was there. Zalara too. And dozens of others from many worlds. Together, they approached a massive black obelisk in the center of the ruins. Kira placed her hand on its smooth surface. She spoke softly in the dragon tongue, mixing words with feelings, logic with intuition. The obelisk came alive with light. Its surface rippled and changed. A door opened that had been sealed for millions of years. Welcome, children of feeling, words appeared in every language at once. The universe awaits those brave enough to understand. Kira smiled at her friends, both human and alien. They had all learned something important. Being different was not a weakness. Every species had unique strengths. Together, they were stronger than any of them alone. Ready? She asked. They nodded and clicked and hummed their agreement. As they walked into the Dragon archive, Kira thought about how far she had come. They had mocked her. They had called humans primitive and simple. But humanity's chaos, their messy mix of emotion and reason, had been exactly what the universe needed. Sometimes the most advanced thing you could be was beautifully, perfectly human.